Testing audio 1 2 3 4 4 3 2 1 0. All right, that looks good.
Oh, something like that, yeah.
You doing okay?
I'm doing good, Jack.
All
How's everything over your way? You all dried
right.
out
What
yet?
about yourself?
Thanks.
I went to several fundraisers. So
Okay, forever.
$37,000.
Yeah, I think David.
Yeah, David.
You're aware Facebook has gone down and I'm having to stream on YouTube. So I've started to stream a
I
little
have
bit
a
early.
friend who lost $100,000 home, still owes $100,000.
If you can do me a favor, send the link via email to your friends that are not on Facebook anymore. That will help, so they can watch this video live tonight.
If it happened here.
Pardon me while I embed the video.
Well, I lost 35 feet in my driveway,
Did you really?
and I live out in the country. I mean,
Hello,
I
sir.
live where
All right.
perfect 96.
And unfortunately,
On Interstate 40.
Mm-hmm.
And, you think up that high, there wouldn't be any good. Came down the hall.
Well, we had the opposite here. There were two different hard rains that caused reflows when the side of the mountains came down. We lost 7 people. Wasn't it 7, Linda?
Oh, we lost.
Wasn't it 7 people?
Had a bunch of homes up there.
But that whole community.
Chris, like, pictures of dog pat.
We really like it. Now, we weren't over there off the Untitled Road. Lord, yeah. Oh my gosh, you didn't see that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, there was a lot of property damage there. Cars taken away. It was a mess.
David.
Oh.
Oh, I was just hanging out. We didn't turn They had it all set up. No cheap. Never mind for us stuff. You want to be sharp or not? Ready for business. Business. What you? Are you? Yeah, you see elbows, huh? Elbows feel. Yeah. Watch out, you see it, John, he's one of those that punches into it.
I just got in today. Yeah, he's been sitting up there for 2 weeks. I finally started to take it today. We put under consent, so I'm going to pay all month. How are you? No, I know.
I need you in just a second.
I'll be doing
Oh, we're back.
All right, let me make some notes. Get that.
They put it or you
Some
want it?
people, I don't know, you want it quick.
I'm good, how are you doing?
First, you know, dinner.
Did you have your own?
No, I'll be.
Derek, okay.
And then just put it in there for it.
Busy, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I hadn't seen you, I hadn't seen Justin. What y'all doing, son? You do? You must be sneaking around. Oh.
That's just the resolution to go with We'll explain it, don't worry.
You're right, you would.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Doing all right?
All right, how about yourself?
Rick?
How are you?
Good, you?
Good, thanks.
My dad used to say nobody carried his weight. What do you He was a bit more colorful saying it, but that was the gist of
They won barely. I feel like.
nothing but this, I guess, yeah, I leaned in it, remember about a month or two ago,
I'll come over there.
Well, she's starting live. The meeting will be starting in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, public safety out here. Yeah, you put your name down.
Is this that old Carolina village?
Testing audio, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 1.
He sure is.
That was it.
That's true too.
Test, 1, 2, 3.
That's exactly what it was.
It put cracks in that man's driveway, 4 feet wide, 6 feet deep.
However,
We did Dunkin' Donuts, what you get? Yep. They had something like that.
That's a good big one.
Oh, yeah.
That's me.
Get my son.
I did, yeah.
Tomorrow.
Hello. No, you walking for a living. Don't worry. Yeah. Don't worry about it. You walking for a living.
That's yours, if you don't.
I'm
Oh, I left it.
Whatever it is that you're doing.
John, since David's not here, anything we vote on, we'll have to do roll call.
Districts. Yeah, I guess your son will be able to get him on phone if he doesn't join Zoom. We can, yes, sir, if there's anybody remote
So,
district.
and we did, we put it on the consent agenda,
That's where I was
so
coming from.
Yes.
if they have any questions, they'll holler at you. And I got my invitation today for the exhibition. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We got to sign it. Okay.
Before I left, that's, she looked at me and I walked. And I said, don't forget, I said, it'd be yours, my name's on the top. Robert called it too.
I want to see that movie, Nomad. It's an excellent movie, I hear.
Guy at work bought, he's got a Jeep, and he bought a trailer that you pull behind it, put all your supplies and provisions, and then it's got a tent on the top.
I've seen some of those. Yeah.
Neat.
I saw a song, this one web page thing. Some of these guys do on the radio.
Hey.
Yes.
I got a hold of the east side there myself.
Well, so far.
We're not hanging up on you, Joe, don't get it wrong.
Hey, I can handle it, Jack.
I know you can.
Yeah. Dinah always runs late. We're not late. On time.
He's just gonna call it. He can't get on Zoom to work.
Okay, I'm gonna go take the microphone up front. Meeting will start within the next 4 minutes or so.
Good, how are you?
2 minutes is better.
It is what it is.
Sorry.
Hey, David.
Hello? Me.
Hey, what's up?
Well, I don't know. You tell us.
I know.
Hey, everybody on the town council.
Hey,
Okay. They all said, hey.
good to hear you.
All right, likewise. I'm not there.
You're not sick, I hope.
I'm not sick. I was in my mental health.
How much is the bail? How much is the bail?
We noticed where your call in was collect.
That's about right.
That's us. You don't remember when you said computers were gonna save paper?
Oh, yeah. That's the
Remember that?
That's the opposite. You're supposed to cut your staff down in half.
Well, Bobby told me that Facebook is going down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much of it down.
Oh, not just Facebook?
Yeah, Brain, Facebook,
Oh, really?
somebody else, yeah. Said Zuckerberg lost $7 billion in about 3 hours after it went down.
Oh, I was thinking.
Lost or didn't make?
Yeah,
Looks like
well, probably between stock and didn't make, I'd say it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
They're not in order.
Apparently their employees can't even get the bill when their access points don't work, so whatever happens.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what my news source was telling me here. We may get him to give us a special report. In person. I'm a little concerned. He's been playing with that computer at the same time that Facebook went down. With Simon and I, so. Yeah. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the October 4th session of the Franklin Town Council to order. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance, led by Vice Mayor Jack Horton.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think I've been a little prisoner there. All right, the next item of business, I have the pleasure to do a couple of swearing-ins tonight. The first, Ms. Owens, if you would come up, please, ma'am.
Raise my mama, the hope that I was one.
Oh, absolutely. Ms. Owens, if you'd raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Amanda Owens,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support and maintain the Constitution
that I will support and maintain the Constitution
and laws of the United States
and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as the Franklin Town Manager, so help me God.
as the Franklin Town Manager, so help me God.
Welcome aboard. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mrs. Owens, our new manager. Let's see, the next is a, Chief Farrell? Oh, here you are. Okay. I have the pleasure of swearing in a new law enforcement officer. Okay. We ready? Okay. I state your name.
I, Austin Holland,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are or may be
which are or may be
established for the government thereof,
established for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor
that I will endeavor
to support,
to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
with the Constitution of the United States,
with the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be alert
that I will be alert
and vigilant
and vigilant
to enforce the criminal laws of this state,
to enforce the criminal laws of this state,
that I will not be influenced
that I will not be influenced
in any manner
in any manner
on account of personal bias,
on account of personal bias,
prejudice,
prejudice,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
execute the duties
execute the duties
of my office as a law enforcement officer
of my office as a law enforcement officer
according to the best of my skill,
according to the best of my skill,
abilities, and judgment.
abilities, and judgment.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Justin, front and center, on the double. On behalf of the entire town council, we wanted to do a little something for you, and so it is that we're going to present you with a certificate of appreciation for your duties. It says, in recognition of his outstanding service as interim town manager, June the 7th, 2021 through September the 12th, 2021, signed by all the members of the council. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
Okay. All right, that brings us to edition, and it's number G, rezoning petition to the planning board on October the 18th. Everybody got that?
I've got it.
You got a change?
Maybe. My understanding is there's going to be a discussion about Bidwell Street on Halloween. I don't think the board has actually taken a vote on that. And if not, I think if we don't have it on the agenda, we may not be in position to vote on it. It's just other persons to be heard. So I think that there's going to be some.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to add
Sure.
that as an agenda item.
We want to, let's see here, why don't we put it right before the the public session, because we have somebody signed up to speak to that.
And yes, but if it's a public session, we're not supposed to vote on it that evening. Correct, John?
Yes.
But if it's on the agenda, we would have the right, and if we don't vote on it, it's
Okay.
gonna be, yeah.
Well, tell me where you want it.
Let's just go ahead and, start it under new business, before the update on the skate park. Let's go ahead and, that way that'll keep the same flow.
Okay, so you want So that would be, G under, new business,
It'd be a new A under new business.
a UA.
I mean, I just want to do it first.
Okay. Well, don't let me forget it, I'm writing it down, okay. Okay, so here we are now. Anybody else got any changes they want to, make to the agenda? David, you got anything, sir?
No, I'm good, thank you, Bob.
You're welcome, sir. Okay, the next item is the approval.
Motion to adopt as amended.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt as amended.
Second.
In a second, all in favor?
Mr. Mayor, you will have to do roll call votes because we're still under the I'm sorry, I didn't come up with these rules. The state of emergency rules of participation by remote or remote number.
Mr. Culpepper, you okay, sir?
Yes, Bob, I'm good.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank
In case y'all are wondering, Mr. Culpepper is on a call, calling. So-
And I would recommend, I think the easiest thing is to have the clerk just call the roll each vote that you take this evening.
Okay,
And again, my apologies, not my idea of a good time. But.
no problem. Okay, all in favor of approval to the consent agenda as amended? Okay, Mr. Talon, I'm sorry, sir.
No, that's okay. Vice Mayor Horton,
I vote aye.
Councilmember Lewis,
Aye.
Councilmember Culpepper, thank you. Councilmember Mashburn, Councilmember Collins,
Aye.
and it passes.
Okay. The next item is there is a public hearing for rezoning 4.5 acres on Silent Road. Was that a public hearing? That is a public hearing for tonight. Is anyone here to speak on that issue?
I think we've got to skip the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor.
No, we just voted on it.
I thought we voted on the agenda, but the consent agenda is what we were, that was the regular agenda.
Okay, I thought I said consent agenda, maybe I did. Okay, Mr. Talon again, sir? On the consent agenda.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
All right. Vice Mayor Horton,
Aye.
Councilmember Lewis,
Aye.
Councilmember Culpepper,
Aye.
Councilmember Mashburn, Councilmember Collins,
Aye.
and it passes.
All right, now then, we're to the public hearing on the rezoning 4.5 acres on Silo Road. Who's going to present that, Mr. Census, sir?
Meeting, Mayor and Town Council. Before you tonight is a public hearing for Hendon Properties for 4.5 acres off of Silo Road. They're requesting to have rezoned from R1 to C2. This borders 441 on the bypass end of Silo Road. It's currently owned by Duke Energy. In your packet, you'll see the application where the planning board recommended the approval of this, along with the current land use map. You can see it highlighted in blue where it's zoned R1 and it's bordering C2. You can also see the future land use map in your packet that during the comprehensive plan, it was recommended this area be suitable for future commercial. Of course, then our staff report. There was no major issues that come up from this rezoning. The only environmental consideration would be potential runoff to the neighboring Little Tennessee River that's in the vicinity. And then finally, you will see also in your packet the recommendations from the planning board, and a new sheet is a reasonableness statement, and our normal consistency statement as well. Planning board did recommend the approval of this rezone.
The property owner is Duke Energy. The petition is from Hendon Properties, is that correct?
Yes.
And is there concurrence, formal concurrence from the property owner for the rezoning.
Yes, they were doing it on their behalf, because they're a potential developer of site.
I just want to make sure, I don't want to go rezone somebody's property unless they say it's okay. I don't think they got a problem, but I think it needs to be something in the record saying that they concur with the request from him to ask for the rezoning of that particular piece of property. Everybody knows that it's going to eventually, be transferred, but it's probably good for the current owner to have something on record saying they concur with it.
Is there anyone here that wanted to speak to this public hearing? I don't know, I have nobody signed up.
Yeah, nobody signed the
Okay.
public hearing form.
Okay. So what do we need now, my manager, council?
Mr. Mayor, apparently your public hearing is concluded, you just need to declare it closed, and then you can move straight into consideration of the matter, which will require you to approve the amendment, if that's the will of the council, approve the amendment to the zoning map and adopt the reasonableness and consistency statements as suggested by the planning board.
Okay, I don't need a vote to close the public hearing.
No, sir, that's your declaration.
Okay. All right, public hearing is closed, and we'll move now into the approve the amendment. Is that correct?
Yes. Actually, you've got it down into.
I don't know, I'm sorry.
So we didn't have consideration. Yes. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, so you might as well move straight into consideration of approval.
Okay, consideration, so that requires a motion.
Yes.
Or approval.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone want to make that motion, or is there further discussion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. So
Thank
do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Oh, Mr. Talent, sir?
All right, Vice Mayor Horton.
Yeah,
Aye,
I vote aye.
Okay. Councilmember Lewis, Culpepper, motion, Donna seconded. Councilmember Collins,
Yes.
motion carries.
Motion's carried. Mr. Culpepper, are you in a street race somewhere?
You would think it, wouldn't you?
Yes.
It's windy and I am on a street corner.
That's all I need to know, sir.
I voted aye.
Yes. You made the motion.
You're correct.
November can't come soon enough. Where are we now? Okay. We're at the public session, are we not? The public session, okay. I have Ms. Susie Pipio. Hi, welcome.
So
You're signed up to speak.
this will technically be the first piece of new business, the way we adjusted it.
Okay. I'm sorry, I am so fouled up tonight. You signed up for the,
It's not to speak during public session, so we're in public session now, aren't
yeah,
we?
I think Councilmember Collins' point is it got added as an agenda item, so he's
Rather than-
proposing you
okay.
invite her up to speak.
so you're not going to speak to the public session, you're going to speak to the
To the agenda.
visual.
She's gonna speak,
agenda.
we're just putting it, we're labeling it a different thing.
Well, please let me know what it is we're doing,
All right.
so.
So she's not speaking in public session, she's gonna speak in regard to the item that's
Yes,
the agenda.
that's
item
right.
That was added to the
All right.
agenda.
And we put it first.
All right.
So what is it we're gonna discuss about this?
Come on up, Susie.
Ain't nobody in public session.
Hi.
So I live on Bidwell Street with some of my neighbors back here, and we would like to request the road to be closed on Halloween, October 31st, for our trick-or-treaters. So that's my request tonight.
Did we not vote on that already, to close it? Chief Harold, haven't we already discussed that? Did we close Bidwell Street? Halloween night?
November 31st. I don't think that one was formally approved by the board.
Oh, we didn't have a formal approval. We did discuss it, I'm
Discuss
pretty
it,
sure,
didn't
yes.
approve it.
Chief Howard, do you have any objection to that?
I don't have any objections. Do you recognize that's on Sunday?
We recognize it's a Sunday.
If you ever been to Bidwell Street on Halloween, you know why the request is being made.
Right.
It's backed up from one end to the other, and it's very dangerous for any automobile traffic out there with all the kids going from house to house on foot.
This is my husband and my 12th year in our house for Halloween. And between us and all of our neighbors, we put on quite a show and hundreds of dollars of candy, and we're happy to do it, even if it's a Sunday. But our argument is we will get trick-or-treaters whether the road's closed or not on Sunday. Last year alone, 2020, as we all remember, we had 2,000 trick-or-treaters still. We get an average of 2,000 every year, and that's just the kids we give candy to, not their posse that they come with. So we assume we could have 5,000 or 6,000 people.
Do we know, is there any difference because it's Sunday?
I think the problem that was presented to me, which is why I'm here, is that it's a Sunday, but to us, we've always done it on the 31st.
I mean, do we know what's gonna happen on Saturday night? Are they gonna send, I'm just curious.
Well, I was told with the town doing their function and the fire department on Saturday, that our road would get lumped into Saturday, but we want it closed on Sunday, and that's when we'll hand out candy, not Saturday.
But when will the trick-or-treaters trick-or-treat?
Sunday.
You believe they will?
I 100% believe they'll come Sunday. Every year. I mean, we're on year 12, and they come on 31st. Even if the town does their thing, that's totally fine. I think that's a whole different clientele than what we get. We get true traditionalist trick-or-treaters. And so if the road's not closed on Sunday, we're gonna still be there giving out candy on Sunday.
From when to when?
Typically 5 to 9, 4 to 9, something like that. They come earlier every year.
Ms. McNeil, do you foresee a lot of people coming on Saturday night as well?
I do not.
Okay.
I see
that
them coming Sunday.
So basically, all that you need would be Sunday.
We need Sunday.
All right.
I presume if it did go like I was hearing and it got, from the town's thing on Saturday, we're still doing ours on Sunday. So we just want the road closed Sunday.
Any further discussion on just closing the road on Sundays?
Chief, what cross streets come across through there? Besides, is it Lyle and then is that the only one, or?
Yeah.
So those people would have access some other way. That wouldn't be an issue. You all just barricade that where that crosses that intersection.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What do you need, 4 or 5 o'clock?
Typically I think it's right at 5.
And
That way for the workers to get home.
Thank you.
And could the police use their discretion as to the time to
Absolutely.
open it up? And I don't want to set it at 9 if it dies out at 8:30.
We turn our lights off at 9 because we're tired.
Yeah.
But we're just happy with the peak hours. I mean, probably the peak hours is 5 to 8, but there's travelers.
So can we make a motion, we close the beginning at 5 and then open it back up in the discretion of the police department?
Second motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr.
Aye.
Councilmember Lewis,
Aye.
Councilmember Mashburn. And I got Councilmember Culpepper. Motion carries.
You have our blessings and our sympathies. That is a great thing. It's
We're happy to
Thank you
do
for
it.
hosting.
Yes, it is hosting.
It
It's a big
is.
party.
It is. Let me tell
My
you.
15-year-old already made me drive up through there this week. She wanted to see what was already there.
It's a
So
slow start with the rain, but it's coming. We're some of the bigger houses, my neighbors back here and ours, and I live next to the cemetery house. And it's quite a production. People work very hard, so we prefer it for the safety as well, for it to show off all of our hard work.
We got you covered.
Thank you very much.
Certainly. Okay. The update on the skate park, Ms. Sanders. Is he not here?
I believe he's there.
Okay. Do you have any, update from him?
I do not.
I do not either. Anybody?
The update that I can
Yes.
offer you is we had a meeting together to discuss the skate park itself. They're hoping to start doing some donations and getting that set up through the Southwestern Commission to do it as a pass-through, since we don't have the capability to take those donations. Construction itself would be starting sometime in February. So they've done a little bit of moving of dirt up there in the primary spot that's been located for it. But February would be when the actual construction would begin.
Thank you. Any further? All right. The next item is a request to approval of the contract for the preliminary engineering report. Madam Manager.
Okay. This is for the water treatment plant phase 2. That's the financing through the state revolving fund. We do have a requirement that by December the 1st, that this preliminary engineering report, or PER as you'll hear it referred to, be completed. We have had information presented to us by our consultants. The cost of that would be $46,000, and the resolution that you have in front of you would allow us to go ahead and front those funds and then do the reimbursement when we get the loan proceeds to come in. You've already signed approval to the project ordinance for this as well. And our Public Works Director, Nathaniel Moore, is here if you have any questions about the PER itself.
Is Withers Ravenel our engineer of record? Is that officially our engineer of record?
So currently we have 2 on-call engineers, and they are one of them, yes.
We also did a separate RFQ process for.
Yeah, the reason I was asking, if we didn't have an engineer of record, then you'd have to go out for request for proposals, but they are on our list as our engineer.
We did send an RFQ out, and they came back from that RFQ.
Contract-wise, Mr. Horton, I think what you can expect to see is that we will bring, they couch this service as under our on-call agreement that we provide for engineering through that sort of standing agreement with them and another engineering firm. For the bigger bulk of the work that's yet to come, we have also done the RFQ process for that, and they were the one that has responded to it. We'll bring you a separate contract for that because it's a much larger chunk of work.
Any further discussion? So what we're voting on now is the resolution. Okay, everybody have a chance to
And to
look at it?
appropriate the $46,000 for the PER.
To appropriate, okay. All right, would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
I'll move.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in, Mr. Talon? Sorry.
Vice Mayor Horton,
Aye.
Councilmember Culpepper,
Aye.
Councilmember Mashburn. Aye. And the motion carries.
And Ms. Bishop, I have one here that you signed too as well. Request for approval of the code enforcement official job description. Madam Manager, and Mr. Henning.
Yes, sir. As the way our employment ordinance is written, for any new positions, you as council need to approve the job description that goes with that. This position was approved in the budget process under a certain amount. However, there was some discussion related to whether this needed to be a sworn law enforcement position or just a regular employment position. So we're intending to bring this back to you as a sworn law enforcement position. And any of us are here to answer questions as to why that recommendation is. Part of that is because the duties, some of the duties would be involving ABC permitting and regulation. And then also what we found, just from my personal experience and others, is that when I was doing code enforcement and I would go out and there would be an enforcement issue related to compliance, sometimes I would catch the brunt of things and people refuse compliance. But when I came back to serve the second notice for the police officer, there was a total shift in the behavior of an individual when you were going out to do that particular notice of violation. Part of what the plan is no matter what way we decide to do this position, is there's going to be an education component for the citizens related to the specific codes that we have in place. Because a lot of times people just don't understand why they can't do something. And it's not that they're trying to go against being in compliance, they just don't know what the code says. So part of this discussion will also be an education component for the citizens, and that will be information that's available on our website, as well as we're planning on putting something in the water bill in a subsequent month, so that it's not just something that's sprung on the citizens.
Mr. Mayor and council members, having reviewed this, I also recommend that you constitute it as a sworn position. Having worked with Justin and his predecessors as town planner, it is always a consideration he's got when we work through it. When he goes to serve notices about things, when he goes to make inspections and things, he's got to line up with somebody who is law enforcement just for his own personal safety. So anytime, and that's so several times a year, we've got times where he really needs to pull somebody else from your other department and use that resource too. So there's a duplication of effort that happens there every time. So if you are going to, and I do think it's very merited, as busy as he's been, of course, you recognize this evening the extra burden he had over the past several months, but he stayed plenty busy as it is, just in planning. I think the code enforcement officer is warranted. I also think for a lot of reasons, but the first one that comes to mind for me is just the efficiency of your use of town resources. Having that person be a sworn officer would be my recommendation.
Just have a question, Mr. Mayor. This position will be actually under two departments, the planning department and the police department. I guess my question is only, who would be the primary supervisor of this position? Or would it be a percentage of one or the other, or how would that work as far as having two different department heads over one employee?
The primary supervisor is going to be the planning department, will be Justin, because their primary responsibility is code enforcement. And so fortunately, we've got a good working relationship, but that aside, it would be his primary responsibility.
The primary responsibility would be under the planning department, but the backup would be under law enforcement as far as having the ability to enforce any code violations that the police department would ordinarily have to do if we didn't have somebody who was sworn in that position.
That's correct.
That's right.
Okay. My understanding is that the only involvement of the police department with this position is the ALE. Not whether or not there has to be enforcement of a code. That would still be under planning. Now, is that right? That's my understanding is that just maybe 5% or something of this person's time might be dedicated to ALE issues, and that is a police power. Other than that, it would be under the planning department. Now, is that correct?
Maybe just one slight addition to that, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but the fact of that officer's licensure is got to be managed by a law enforcement agency. So that's also involvement. It's a little bit analogous to where, and I just thought of this, but we have SROs that are direct employees of their school systems. They are sworn through a department, like the sheriff's department, but they directly answer to the school system. So it'd be kind of analogous to that. Justin as the civilian, supervisor of that. That's one.
And there's no expectation of the sworn officer morphing into an officer who may work vacations for the police department, or sick leaves, or special events?
No, sir, because the salary itself is actually done through the planning line items, not even in the police at all.
Question.
Will they be housed, their physical location here at the town?
Yes, they will have an office here at Town Hall.
Mr. Culpepper, you have any discussion on this, sir?
Surprisingly, I do. I think this is one of the more important hires we've actually done. I think we need to tread somewhat lightly with this, considering we haven't went crazy with code enforcement in the past. We've been pretty lackadaisical and got the things that have been very important done. I don't want us to make it illegal to be poor within the town of Franklin. And I think that as this comes online and as we hire a code enforcement officer and we start to try to gain compliance, it may very well be necessary to revisit some of our ordinances and see if we're kind of trapping people maybe where they don't need to be trapped. I'm for the position and I'm for code enforcement, but we did tread lightly when we start to enforce codes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any further discussion?
Let me add, just to respond to that, just very briefly, Mr. Mayor, there's a recently enacted session law that it requires you to sort of re-examine how your local law enforcement is done, and to particularly look at ordinances that are enforced through criminal means, which you don't have very many of to begin with, but that's a process we're already required to take a look at and review, which we've been talking about quite some time before the state got, the General Assembly got sort of motivated about it. So we'll be exploring exactly that topic that he raises as we move along.
Well, we're gonna have to talk about incentive at some point too for getting rid of some of these stuff. These cars are really good. We start enforcing this on these vehicles, that's gonna be an issue. So we're gonna have to come up with some kind of incentive for people that, whether it's we get somebody to come and get them and let them have the scrap metal and it doesn't cost the town anything or something. We're at the discussion for another time, but it's gonna be coming. And I will say that, just from my 2 cents, a sworn officer actually has tools at their disposal that a civilian doesn't have, as far as technology wise and that sort of thing. So, without going into great detail, there's a lot more tools in their toolbox.
Further discussion?
Can you hear me still?
Yes, sir.
I think at some point we're going to come into a situation where it's going to come down to semantics, where we may say somebody's vehicle is junk, and by our definition, it may meet our junk ordinance, but they may not view it as junk. The same thing with people storing stuff around their house or on their porch. We may see it as unsightly or as junk or trash, and it may not be junk or trash to them. And I worry that it's ultimately going to come down to semantics. I mean, more people, they may not have a lot, but they have the stuff on their porch, and I'm not sure that I want to throw the hammer down on folks that's what they have.
Okay, any further discussion? Where do we move on from here? So what is the issue of whether it will be, the issue is settled that we need a enforcement person.
The motion would be to accept the job description.
That's what I'm getting to, yeah, if I can finish there. And basically it boils down to, I think, whether it's a sworn or a civilian style office within the town. Am I correct on that?
Yes, sir. And the job description as drafted has it as a sworn officer. So if it's approval of the proposed description, it'll be sworn.
Did you hear that, Mr. Culpepper?
I did, and thank you.
Okay, I didn't want to leave you out of the loop there.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Bashburn has a motion.
I make the motion to accept the job description as presented by Town Manager Owens.
Second, Mrs. Matthews. motion, and I'd like to say that both our interim and town manager and planner and code enforcement official has spent a lot of time studying this issue along with the chief. And our new town manager has had experience in code enforcement more than we have personally. And our town attorney also looks at the possibility of additional resources that a sworn person would have. So I'd say based on the recommendation of our planner, interim town manager, and the town attorney, that we would proceed with the job description as presented and recommended for approval by the motion from Councilmember Mashburn.
Okay, I'm assuming that's a second.
That's the second.
Okay.
Talk me into it.
Okay, Mr. Talent, sir, it's
Roll call.
roll call.
Councilmember Lewis.
Aye.
Councilmember Culpepper.
Aye.
Councilmember Collins.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. All righty, let me see where we are now. Okay, the next item is an update. There was a homeless issue that was raised by a news story. Chief Errol, I think you and Captain Holland will be presenting this. I don't know whether you're presenting a clarification of exactly what you're presenting.
Well, question. Good evening, council, mayor, and staff. I was asked to basically give an update based on that recent article that was in the paper with our correspondence with DOT or our homeless population upkick that we've obviously had in the past 15 to 16 months, especially under the DOT bridges that are inside the city limits. There have been many conversations that I've hosted with actually judges, magistrates, DA's office, the sheriff's office, to do what we could do legally in enforcement, because as most of you know, vagrancy in and of itself and homelessness is not illegal. So it's the derivatives from that that are creating the most problems. And that's the littering and the destruction of property and the stolen properties that are happening because of those circumstances. We started a dialogue that Captain run point on. I reached out to representatives of the state and people like that, and he reached out to the DOT over this past year, and he has some information that hopefully he can provide for you with any questions that you may have to follow. But at this time, I want to let the captain speak. He is our captain of operations for a patrol division, and he's worked very feverishly over this past year, and I think done an excellent job. And a lot of the cleanup that you've seen around the town, but also segueing into those conversations with DOT on things that we can do better, together as a partnership.
Welcome, Captain Holland. Glad to have you, sir.
Thank you for welcome. Just a basic rundown of the article in case you didn't read it. It was started back in the winter. As I was patrolling, I noticed a lot of foot traffic from the Walmart area down Mountain Pit Stop in that retail area down the bypass to the bridges going over the Greenway and the Little Tennessee River. So I hopped under there and noticed there were people living under their tents and trash everywhere. And typically a DOT bridge has trespassing signs affixed to the pillars of the bridge. However, this one didn't. So I was like, I reached out to the engineers to see if they would erect these no trespassing signs as the other bridges. And at the time, he told me that the state of North Carolina recognized the CDC guidelines that they were not to relocate any homeless persons under the current pandemic, which I understood that. So fast forward to about a few weeks ago, I reached back out to them to see, what the update was. Because meanwhile, the bridge, particularly over the bypass or over the Little Tennessee River and the Greenway, has just gotten worse. The trash is terrible. A few weeks ago, some lady walking the Greenway called me, and she said she observed some persons that were living under there take a bucket of what she believed to be human waste and dump it in the river. And I explained to her what our, I guess, obstacles were. And I think that's when she reached out to the local media, which spawned this article. So when I reached out to him a few weeks ago, the local engineer told me that we could, usher the homeless person down the bridge off, but it was up to us, not that they weren't going to initiate anything, which tells me that they're not going to have our back. If we had to charge them for trespassing, they're not going to show up for court for the prosecution, which leads us back to, we're short-staffed as it is usually, so we don't want to waste our time doing the prosecution and the arrest, the booking, then go to court for it to be dismissed because they don't show up. So I interpreted the last email that they were leaving it up to us, and they would clean up the mess, meaning the litter afterward. But they've been as cooperative as they can. I mean, they're restricted by the state level policy. I don't know if you saw the pictures in the paper of the bridges, but it's terrible. And we have reached out, Chief Carroll and I, to these homeless people and the vagrants. We believe that arrest is our last resort. We don't want to just take them and throw them in jail because that's a temporary fix. We've done everything under the sun possible that our community offers these people. We've offered them local identifications to get jobs, because a lot of them say they can't get a job because they don't have any identification. So we reached out to CareNet, who has an ID making machine, and we were going to confirm their ID just on a local level so they could get a job, but they won't go get that done. We offer them all the other resources: No Wrong Door, Making New Beginnings, Men's Challenge of the Smokies, but they just won't go do it. And I know a lot of it is hinged on drug abuse and mental illness. So I just want everyone to know that we have offered everything to help them, because we want to make this a permanent fix, not just throwing them in jail and then be right back out.
I'd like to make a comment, if I may. This is not a new issue.
Right.
I've been involved dealing with this for 18 years at least, and even before then. I just don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I don't have the answer either. I think a lot of maybe some progress toward an answer is some design and engineering techniques for our bridges and future facilities to prevent the bordering. And as you said, over the years, in the past 5 years, I think Franklin's seen an increase in homelessness. Whereas 25 years ago when I started, we had 3 or 4 homeless people that actually had homes. They just chose to drink in town, and we had to take them home. Now they have no homes. But I'm sorry.
But don't you think a design issue is not the problem? They're not homeless because they can stay under a bridge. They're staying under the bridge because they're homeless. Right. So if for some reason it was a decision to design it so they couldn't stay on the bridge, they'd go somewhere else.
Right, that's true. And I honestly tell them, I say, I promise you, if you go somewhere outside of mine and you clean up your mess, no one will call you. I encourage that. I mean, because the filth underneath the bridge don't need to scatter up on the greenway where our kids and family go and enjoy. I mean, we just ran one off a couple mornings ago, sleeping on the gazebo at the Wesley's Park. When your family shows up to see that. Plus, a lot of this doesn't apply to the bridge I'm speaking of, but the bridge down here by McDonald's on East Main Street is riddled with trash, and I don't even feel like comfortable going under there myself, but I've been under there a few times this week because we've had larcenies at the hot spot and elsewhere, and they all run back to there. But a lot of this trash on the lower bridges, when I say trash, includes needles, paraphernalia, glass, what have you. When these floodwaters come up, it picks it up and washes it down to the other parts of the greenway or the rec park, or other places where we enjoy the recreation.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I could probably sit and talk about this all night, but I'll try to be brief. I appreciate, as much as I appreciate your efforts, there's nowhere for these people to go.
I agree.
And until the town and the county sit down and come up with something, and I just got have a few brief things. I work with No Wrong Door. And I also have had discussions through some homeless meetings with New Beginnings. Even if you go to New Beginnings or you go to No Wrong Door, there's nowhere to put it.
Right.
Last winter, No Wrong Door got a grant and we were able to put some people in some motels. That grant ran out. That was mostly some drug people that had gotten out of jail that we knew if we put them back out on the street.
I actually
Even worse-
transported a few of those to the hotel on behalf of them.
So, but that money ran out. So right now, No Wrong Door doesn't have anywhere to put anybody. And to be quite honest, we've taken money out of our own pockets here the last few weeks and put some people in motels. And that being the motels that will take somebody local. Because we knew that they were one shot away from maybe getting into some recovery. I'll go a little deeper and say you probably may have dealt with a homeless veteran we had that took quite a long time to ever get him over to the VA. He's now back and stable, but he has nowhere to go. He's living in a motel. VA paid for him for a while. And then now they won't do that anymore, and he's paying because he doesn't have enough money built up to get him into an apartment if there were an apartment available. One other story is there's one homeless veteran that comes to No Wrong Door. He worked with Lee at the VA and finally got in the system to where he could get his medical, but he's staying at a local hospital. So there's nowhere to put them. I mean, and if we get them out, they're just going to be somewhere else in the county. I know we all want our town to be the best that it is, but I don't know the answer, and I don't know what to do.
I'd like to ask you, Captain Holland, too. I know that in my experience, and I wanted to get your experience too, quite often people, believe it or not, like this lifestyle. It's kind of like the hobos of years ago that rode the rails.
I certainly agree. A majority of them prefer the lifestyle.
And this is a problem. You give them a place to go, but they don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, bouncing off that, we found there are different classes of homeless. There's that.
Yes.
And there's some that are couch surfers. There's some because of drugs and different barriers. You know, they get out of jail, and that's the big thing. They get out and they have nowhere to go. So if you're going right back to the street, you're basically going back to the same life. I know that Mr. Culpepper will probably be mad I said this, but your own comment a minute ago of I don't want it to be illegal to be poor in the town of Franklin, that stuck with me. I know that doesn't fall to all of the people of homelessness, but it has a whole lot to do with why people are homeless. And I wrote it down when Mr. Culpepper said that it's almost like the enforcement on, there's some people, yes, stealing and all of that, but there's an awful lot of it that it is kind of making it illegal to be poor in the town.
The sad part is, though, is as long as they're out of sight, they're going to be out of mind. That's the problem. That's the other side of it. Nobody's going to do anything about it as long as they don't see them as long as they're under that bridge.
Mr. Culpepper?
You got to add to that, they don't have the knowledge and they don't have the tools to know how to get out from where they are. Yes, there are resources available, but I mean, you kick somebody out, somebody gets out of jail and they go into the street, they don't have the mental fortitude to survive without turning back to drugs. And that's a vicious cycle of homelessness. And yes, we have some homeless populations there, but it's a drug issue and a mental health issue. I don't think we have so much of a homeless issue. It is straight up drugs and mental health, and they don't have the fortitude to survive on their own without getting back into that vicious cycle.
I used to think if somebody told me that somebody was living in a car, I thought that was terrible until I saw the things that I see now, and now my response is, well, it's good they got a car. You know, I mean, your attitude changes as you go
I'm glad you said that, because that's the second set of homelessness that I didn't add on, is all these people, especially in the colder months. And last year we had several living out of their cars that moved from the Greenway to the library to Walmart parking lot, just moving around.
Let me ask you guys this, Captain Holland and Chief Harrell. Do y'all have any ideas you'd like to throw at the council? I mean, I'm at a total loss.
Couple of things I'll leave you with, just to
Yes,
ponder on
please.
moving forward, is that the large majority of our homeless population are not local. And like Councilman Collins brought up a few moments ago, they came from somewhere that they weren't welcome. And most of the ones that we've been able to actually get to admit or to have conversation with as to what planted them here was because they're welcome and it's easy. You know, and they talk about the hospitality of our community. Truly. So things to think about. But, you know, again, the captain alluded to the fact that we've made every effort to try to get them the help that they need. And because of, you know, a lot of the things that Council Member Culpepper pointed out, you know, their mental acuity, they just, you know, they don't know how to survive. And so it's a leap of faith for them to want to take that next step a lot of times, even though we're offering it to them. So, you know, we've got to do some other things, and we're working honestly around the clock to try to come up with some outside the box, you know, ideals that'll make our community safer and try to preserve it. What brings people here, you know, to begin with.
That is the whole policy, what you just put out, Chief. They're coming here in part because they weren't welcome where they were. Then you suggested that's something we need to think about. Is the thought, well, let's just push them down the road, or the thought that we do something while they're here? Is that not really where the policy issue is? I mean, I'm just trying to figure it out myself. Is it your thought, right or wrong, that we could go ahead and push them on down the road?
I think that, and this is an opinion.
That's all I'm asking.
I think that, you know, those that are sincerely wanting help and need help, that we'll be able to find that for them. Just like Council Lady Mashburn pointed out, is the veterans, you know, with veteran services, you know, and we just keep working toward that end to try to find a resolution, you know, for the problems that they face. But the large majority of the others, the unfortunate addicts that will not, you know, turn over a new leaf. We just have to take the enforcement actions that are available to us to deal with those circumstances. And, you know, we've had those discussions that I spoke to earlier with the judges and the district attorneys and people like that. We're not talking about trying to enforce unconstitutional laws on them. We didn't reinvent the wheel. I mean, this is
exactly
ongoing. You know, everybody's been paying attention to the news from Asheville West, and it's just, you know, a continual problem that continues to.
That's just because we don't get the news from Asheville East. It'd be the same there too.
We're finally getting the effects of homelessness.
Well, one thing that we have is, we're like you said, we're welcoming because we're outdoors like we are. And you can live like that if you are so inclined.
And the more comfortable living closer to town, because a lot of the resources they need to survive are here.
The fastest.
And like
We found right
out, if they move out to the county, well, they're going to come back to the town anyway to eat.
Yeah.
The
To get
camps,
what they need, those necessities. It's just like all those of us that used to live in the county or whatever still do.
Well, years ago, you could get
Come to town to shop and to do those things.
You can get one free meal a week somewhere. Now you can get a food any time of the day from CareNet, which these organizations are great because they're well used and well deserved to people, but, you know, we got these food pantries all over, the outskirts of town, so these people that choose this lifestyle have food any time of the day, as long as they can survive the climate, they're fine.
That's another thing, are we prepared for code purple this winter?
Yeah, it's soon approaching, so it's,
Yes.
Well, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, and it's just a hypothetical, because I don't know what the answer is either, but if everybody around this table said, get them out tomorrow, you can't, because the NCDOT is not gonna say they're trespassing, correct?
Correct, unless we take the initiative.
But you'd be wasting your time if the property owner is not gonna.
If it's posted legally, we can take that enforcement action.
But it doesn't sound like they're gonna do that either.
Well, in most places it is. They have stepped up and posted most places, locations. But at the end of the day, if they contest it in court, if the victim's a no-show, you have no crime. So.
Let me ask
Yes,
another
ma'am.
question. I know that some of this that you were talking about was farther out, like at Walmart at the bridge, but for the town bridge, that's right there in the heart of town. So what all do you see there? And that's where you're getting about the people in the greenway and the fear and stuff is from that bridge, correct? Or is it from some of the others?
It's either that one and the one on the over the Little Tennessee River. It used to be the one in front of the New Ingles on 441, but we've since kind of ushered them off because there was signs posted, last year. Plus, I think the town did some pipe work and kind of opened that area up where it exposes, and you can't really, feel like you're hiding as much.
How many people under the town bridge, you think?
Well, it varies from day to day.
Right,
and most days that we come in, and we are running calls almost 4 to half a dozen times a day for homeless people that are in locations that make people nervous or that inconvenience them, whatever the case may be, that they obviously slept the night also. So it's day to day. There's no way to put a fixed number.
Well, this week I found 3 different people under that 3 Bible buildings. Yeah, and I don't check it every day.
We're seeing new faces weekly. So
Mr. Mayor, we had some folks come to the town board meeting over this past year who were real concerned with homelessness in the county, and they wanted something done about it and wanted to know what the town could do to help them. And someone suggested during one of those meetings that we have a task force to address this. I don't know if anything's ever developed from that idea or not, but it seems like this is not going to be a problem solved by just law enforcement or the town board, but it's going to involve a lot of different people. And so I'd like to see if there was some way we could revisit that idea of getting this task force together to bring all the people who can add something to it and come up with a permanent solution. I mean, we can help them one day at a time, but they need a permanent solution. And if we have the right people together, I think we can come up with something that will help them and help our community too. So I don't know where to begin on that, but I'd like to see us ask those folks who came and met with us to come back and see if they can help put us something together to really address this on a broad scale.
And there are some people, that are meeting now, in different things, trying to, get some grant funding to do some things. Everything, of course, takes money, but there are different people, that involve new beginnings and.
I don't think we can solve it with a broad brush. I think we're going to have to look at these things individually, because it's like you were saying, not everybody has the same story. I know a success story that Sheila was telling us about at a meeting recently about a veteran who was here and had nothing, had no money, and was in really bad shape. When I think the No Wrong Door folks, and you may have been involved with that, found him and found out the fact that he had money. He just didn't know he had it. He had money in Tennessee in an account for him that he didn't even know he had. And you're able to connect that resource up with that person and help him with his situation, at least for that time.
His was mental, and he had just went into complete mental breakdown, and he had some criminal charges that came up.
If I could add to that, I know you're speaking
Yeah.
of. So I can tell you the countless man and woman hours wasted on him for multiple arrests, multiple involuntary commitment at the hospital. So not only hospital staff, our staff, jail staff, to get him, to where he is now. And none of that worked, we were just trying to get him connected to the right agency or organization, which ended up being.
And part of that failure too was the fact that you go through the involuntary commitment and you go to the hospital here, they send you where the agency they connect you with, and he was a veteran and he could never get to the VA until sort of had to bypass it a little bit through a commitment to get him, and took a few tries there, but the man is, yes, greatly improved. But it's getting the people to the right place. But I think tonight, the main thing, you gave an update, it's opened it up to where a conversation can start, and
If you'll allow me to close with this, it's obviously a slippery slope. I think we have to be very, very careful moving forward that we're not enabling a certain lifestyle.
Well, that's true. Absolutely. Thank you, Chief. Thanks, guys. Anything else from the council? Appreciate you guys. Keep up the good work. Okay. All right, the next item, Madam Manager, you have an item about a memorial bench on Main Street.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna actually allow HR Director Travis Talent
Okay.
to address this because it was his great suggestion.
Great, great. Yes, sir.
I can't take all the credit, first off. This is based on a conversation that I had with Finance Director Sarah in light of the passing of Gwen Taylor, which was, she made such an impact on the town of Franklin. Everything she did with the Main Street program. We all know what she did. The public knows, the media knows. She was president of the Streets of Franklin Heritage Association. We saw her often at our meetings about street closing requests and whatnot. And then also Larry Hollifield, he passed as well. He spent 17 years on the town planning board. He was also active on Main Street with the association events and everything. So just one of the things that we talked about was the possibility of a memorial bench, sort of as a thanks to everything that those two individuals did. But I mostly just wanted to bring it up to you all and see your thoughts and potentially move forward with a project just showing thanks from the town of Franklin.
This would be the metal fence, the metal benches that we have on Main Street that we're getting pretty well known for. Yes, sir.
So are we suggesting that we have a bench with initially two names with the understanding that maybe in the future it could become a situation where we want to add another name to that bench, similar to the wall of fame at the football field? Or we're not talking about a separate bench for each?
No, I don't.
And I wouldn't necessarily want to limit it to these first two.
I was thinking the same thing, where we talk about two benches or one and adding names.
I'd love to have a bench that we could honor people who we believe work so hard for the town, but they could be too collectively, every how many names you could put on a bench, I don't know.
That's probably something that, will grow over time. And, if you set the precedent with this project, you may want to consider the future as well. So I think that's a great conversation piece.
We're not limited to the placard. We could add things to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think what we need to do now is everybody in favor of doing this? If so, I'll entertain a motion to. We have the motion. Do I have a second? Is there volume on this thing? Mr. Talent, sir.
Okay, so Vice Mayor Horton.
Aye.
Councilmember Lewis.
Aye.
Councilmember Culpepper.
Aye.
Councilmember Mashburn.
Aye.
Councilmember Collins.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
We have a closed session. Counselor, I'm going to let you explain why we're having a closed session, and then what I would like to do, I'd like to make the announcements of upcoming events. No, ma'am, I think I've got it all. I'll add something.
Oh, okay, no, I misunderstood. It went to the consent.
That's right.
I was,
That's right.
I kept wondering where you got G earlier, so I guess now I know why.
And Linda, you were here. Everything you were here for get answered?
I suppose,
You suppose? Okay, that's good
I'm
enough.
here so that y'all can ask me if you need to do it, I don't think you need to.
Okay, it was about the Christmas parade, the street, okay. And we'd already talked about that. We'd already talked about that, so. Okay, so the next town council meeting is Monday, November the 1st. I think we have election day the next day. Pumpkin Fest will be held on Saturday, October the 23rd, 2021. And we're going to be rolling those pumpkins. So that's all I have. We don't expect anything to come out of this closed session that will be voted on or anything. So if everybody wants to leave, you're perfectly welcome to do so. There's no point in really standing around waiting for no news. So thank y'all all for coming tonight. It's been a good meeting.
Linda, the closure for the Christmas parade, that was part of our consent agenda.
Yeah.
So it just got passed.
We already discussed it. Okay, if you want to go into the kitchen, if you want to go upstairs.
And you do need to consider a motion to go into closed
Yeah,
session.
well, I need one. Okay, Mr. Talent, we need a motion to go into a closed session. Do I have a second? I have a second. Roll call.
Vice Mayor Horton.
Aye.
Councilmember Culpepper.
Hey, Culpepper. Hello?
Aye. Aye.
Councilmember Mashburn.
Aye.
Councilmember Collins.
Aye.
And it carries.
I guess we're gonna have to stay in here though, so Dave.
Yeah.
You're taking with you.
Yeah. It says,
I'll keep on the phone so you can go wherever.
Travis says logistically for us to stay here.
Logistically, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, it is.
For my recording, if we go back there, it echoes a little bit.
Bobby, you okay with turning everything off?
Yeah.
So, what's your?
Everybody.
Okay, thank you all for watching. I'll try to have the video up sometime tomorrow. I'm shutting her down.
Robert, about his rules, I didn't come up with that.